What is going on, guys? It's Modded Warfare here. Welcome back to another PS5 video. So in this video, we're going to take a look at how to get the debug settings running on the PlayStation 5. So this is for firmware version 4.03 and 4.50. And this particular version uses Spectre's exploit, which means we do not require a Blu-ray disc in order to run this exploit. So firstly, if we head into settings and we go down to system and we go to system software update and settings, you need to make sure that download update files automatically and install update files automatically are both unchecked. And also, if you head into console information, you want to make sure that you are on firmware 4.03 or 4.50. So at the beginning of the system software string here, it says 21.02 and then there's a dash. So after that dash is the firmware version, so 04.03, that's 4.03. So you can follow this if you're on 04.03 or 04.50, which is 4.50. If you're on a higher firmware, you're not going to be able to do this. And if you're on a lower firmware than 4.03, then you're better off staying on that lower firmware until a new jailbreak comes out. Technically, you can update with a USB drive to 4.03 if you want to, but I wouldn't recommend it at this stage. So next thing we want to do is make sure we're connected to the internet. So go to network, go to settings, and make sure you're connected to the internet. There's kind of two ways we can set this up, but I'm going to show you the easy way just for enabling the debug settings, which is to use a website that's already got the exploit set up for you, because it's just a lot easier to do it that way. Alternatively, though, you can of course set up the exploit yourself on, a local host by running it on your computer, which does give you access to a few more functions of the exploit, like the ability to dump the kernel and the ability to send RPC commands to the console. However, we're just enabling the debug settings, so we can just use a website that's already got the exploit set up for us. So we're just going to go ahead and set up the internet connection. We're going to go to whatever network you're currently connected to and press the options button on it and go to advanced settings. From there, we're going to go down to DNS settings and change it to manual, and then set the primary DNS to one of these two IP addresses, either 192.241.221.79. So you can use that IP address as your primary DNS, or if that one doesn't work, if the server's down, you can use 165.227.83.145. So either one of these two IP addresses should work. Click OK and let it connect up to the network. And then from there, we're just going to go back to our settings. Now, we want to go down to system settings and go down to web browser. Make sure allow cookies and enable JavaScript are ticked. Make sure those are enabled. You can also delete your cookies and website data from here. And then we're going to go to the user guide. Now, if the user guide doesn't load up, or if it loads up the normal user guide, or you just get a blank page, then make sure you log out and log back into your profile, because that is the best way to kind of refresh the browser, because sometimes clearing your cookies and website data doesn't actually refresh it properly. So logging out and logging back in is a good way to do it. Then we can go back into the settings and load up the user guide. And we're going to say yes to confirm the security certificate. And then that'll take us to Alaziv's exploit host. We're going to hit the left trigger, so L2 twice. And then that will bring up the URL redirector. And then we're just going to go to any website that is currently hosting the PS5 exploit. So one of them is es7in1.site. So es7in1.site. So we can head to that website here and then go to the ES option in the top left-hand corner and then run the get debug settings for PS5 4.03/4.50 hosts. So you can see I got a not enough free system memory error. So do I want to stop loading this page? I'll just say no and refresh. You just want to click OK to that message or reload the page every time you get one of those error messages, and it will just try and load the exploit again. So once it works, you'll get this ready message. Click OK and it will start trying to execute the exploit. And if it worked successfully, which I'm kind of lucky because it did appear to work successfully this time, you can see it says enable debug settings, and then it says connecting to RPC server in 10 seconds. That's the last message you should see. If it doesn't get to this point, then it means it's failed and you'll have to reboot the PS5 and try again. And it may crash, in which case you have to hit the power button twice to turn it back on. And, you'll get maybe a few error reporting messages on the PS5 when you turn it back on. You just ignore those. and you go ahead and run the exploit again until it eventually works. May take quite a few tries for you to actually get it to work. So in order to exit the browser, you're supposed to press the circle button to exit, because if you press the PS button, it can cause a crash. And also if you hit the options button and go down to close page, that may also cause a crash. So you're supposed to press circle to exit out of this page. That's the only button you should press to exit. Now, sometimes it can still crash even when you press circle. So again, you'll just have to reboot and try again. Or another thing you can do is just wait on this screen until you get an out of memory error. So it's up to you. You can either press circle to exit out of the page now, or wait for it to come up with the out of memory error and then exit the page, because at that point you know that it's definitely stable. There we go. Not enough free system memory. That means I can click OK and press circle, and then I can basically close the page now without any issues by hitting options and going down to close. And there we go. You can see everything's still running. So now if I go back into the settings menu, you can see that the debug settings have not loaded. However, if you refresh the settings menu by coming out back to the home screen and then going back into settings again, you'll see that we now have access to the debug settings. So let's take a look at some of the stuff that we've got in here. So most of this stuff is all kind of developer settings to kind of test features and functions of the PS5, mainly for test kits and development kit consoles. So there's not a hell of a lot in here that's useful to the end user. There's a few things to note though. For instance, you have the license activation, which can allow you to enable the codecs, the media codecs, which normally you have to connect to Sony servers in order to enable these. Whereas, of course, even offline, you can enable them here in the debug settings. So that's pretty handy. Also, you've got in system, there is IDU mode. Now, you should never turn IDU mode on. It's just interesting that you have the option to, but I wouldn't ever recommend it because it can be very difficult to get back out of IDU mode once you go into it. So definitely don't enable that. But basically, IDU mode is a kiosk console. So you can turn it into a kiosk console, which is essentially when you go into like game stores and they have a console on display that has a bunch of game demos that you can try out. That is IDU mode. Those consoles are in IDU mode, where they're in like this lockdown environment that's just for running game demos. So you can basically turn your console into that. But again, I would not recommend it because it's very difficult to get out of, and there's no game demos installed on your system to run anyway. And of course, we also have the package installer. If we go into game, you'll get this something went wrong error messages. That's fine. You just click OK and it'll enter the menu anyway. But we do have the package installer in here. So if I open this, I do have a bunch of package files on here because I put a bunch of package files on the root of a USB drive and connected it up to the PS5, just so that we can take a look at what kind of packages we can install and what ones we can't install here with the debug settings. So I've got a good variety of different types of packages here. So firstly, here's a fake package file for the PS4. This is Horizon Forbidden West for the PS4 for 9.00, a fake package file. Now, of course, that's not going to install because we need a homebrew enabler to be able to install fake packages even on the PS4. And because it's a fake package file, it's definitely not going to install here on the PS5. We do not have any kind of homebrew enabler payload or anything like that for the PS5. So that's not going to work. Interestingly enough, though, something that should theoretically work but doesn't are PS5 game updates. So I've got a game update here for Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, which of course is a valid PS5 update. This is a retail update downloaded directly from Sony servers and merged into one package, which is what you need to do with game updates. And as you can see, when I select it here, I just get an error. Does not want to let me install it. So a bit confusing because that is a valid package file. So theoretically it should install, but it just does not install at all. Another one that's interesting is a PS5 game. This is Astro's Playroom, which of course is a game that's pre-installed on your PS5 when you first set it up. So, you know, I don't even know if this one requires a license in order to run because it's pre-installed. It's not something that you have to purchase. And yet that does not install either. It's like it tries to install and then it just gets an error. Now, this was pulled off Heinbrid's PS5. He uploaded it. And of course, it's not working here. So I don't know if it's maybe there's some issue with the package, but for whatever reason, it's not installing either. So that's a PS5 title that's not installing. And again, that should be a retail package. So yeah, kind of weird there. So how about PS4 game updates? So I've got two updates here for Days Gone. Version 1.10, which was before the PS5 came out, and 1.80, which apparently came out for 4.03 and I think 9.00 on the PS4. So if I try and install these, interestingly, it does not give me an error. It says unknown added to downloads. However, if I go to the downloads, you can see that it just doesn't show up in the downloads. It's just not here, which again is a bit weird. And if I go back to the home screen and we take a look at Days Gone, we go to information, you can see it's not installed. It says version 1.00. So it's not installed that one either. Let's go ahead and try the 1.80 update, which came out when the PS5 was on 4.03, so it should be valid. The PS5 should recognize this update. And again, unknown added to downloads. If we go into downloads, we take a look. Again, it's not there. And also, if we head back and go to information, you can see again, we're still on 1.00. So yeah, a bit strange. PS4 game updates not installing either. So let's go ahead and go back to the package installer. So they've only got a couple of other things to try. I've got a couple of game demos. So we have PT, of course, which is the Silent Hill demo that for a game that unfortunately never got made. So we can, this actually installs, surprisingly. So it seems that game demos for the PS4 seem to install, maybe full game packages as well. I don't actually have a full retail PS4 game to install. But if this installs, then theoretically PS4 games might install as well. Of course, because they're retail packages, we don't have the license to run them. So even though we can install these packages, we cannot run them on the PS5 itself. Now, PT is not officially on the backwards compatibility list for the PS5. So it's definitely not going to let me even attempt to run this. So alternatively, I've got this one right here, this other demo, which was pulled off one of the IDU update discs for the PS4. So we'll go ahead and install this one as well. Okay, so you can see there, Child of Light ready to play. So if we head back, you can see it has installed them. So you've got PT right here, which has got the message here that this PS4 game or demo isn't playable on the PS5. It's not on the official backwards compatibility supported list. So that's why that one shows up with that error message. So if I try and run it, it just says demo isn't playable. And if it was on the compatibility list, like this one, you can see it will have the padlock symbol instead because we don't have the license to run it. So it says can't use this content. To use this content, purchase it. Again, this, I believe, don't know if this is the full game. I think this is just a demo, and yet it will not allow me to run it without a license. So yes, you can install some packages, mainly PS4 packages, but of course, without the license files, you're not going to be able to run them. We need a homebrew enabler and fake package files in order to run them, which we're not going to get on the PS5 until we have some kind of hypervisor exploit, which will then turn this into a full jailbreak. That is why this is just what we're referring to as a partial jailbreak at this point, not a full jailbreak. So yeah, that is basically it for this video, guys. That's how you access the debug settings on your PS5. Stay tuned for the next video where I'll be showing you guys how to host this exploit yourself on your computer and show you some of the other functions that this exploit from Spectre has, like the ability to dump your PS5 kernel and send RPC commands to the PS5 as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video or found the information useful. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll hopefully see you guys in the next one.